Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Venture Fuel Visionaries podcast. I'm your host, Fred Schonenberg. On today's show, we have Sokwoo Rhee. Sokwoo is the Executive Vice President at LG Electronics and the head of LG's North American Innovation Center, LG Nova. He has a rich background that includes serving as a Presidential Innovation Fellow at the Whitehouse, leading groundbreaking IoT and smart city initiatives. Sokwoo brings a wealth of experience in driving innovation and technology forward. Today, we're going to dial into LG Nova's Commercial Accelerator program. We're going to get his take on CS, as well as understand why a $60 billion plus revenue company seeks external innovation in the first place. So please join me in welcoming Sokwoo Rhee. Sokwoo, it's so nice to see you again. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me, Fred. It's an honor.
Well, so we met in person last week in Las Vegas at the Consumer Electronics Show. So let's start there. Did you see anything at the show that was particularly exciting or new and different that you want to tell people about?
Yeah, absolutely. So everything was exciting, as you can see in the CES. It's really future-looking show, and I was impressed by the progress on AI and digital health and all kinds of gadgets that supports all these themes. What I was specifically interested in was the AI starting moving from technology development into more of an application side. That's what was interesting to me, and it's what excited me.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I feel like AI has been evolving for 30 plus years, and then last year it sort of burst onto the scene as something consumers knew about. And you're right, it was all about the technology and what potentially was possible. And now you're seeing the enterprise use cases, the ways you could commercialize it really start to evolve. And we saw a lot of that at CES this year.
Yeah. And that's you made a very interesting point. Is AI has been around for a long time. I mean, from 1960s and 50s, there has been always ups and downs, just like any new technology. But I think AI is now at the point that really found its core value. And it may not be the only value we found yet. It may be more values going forward. But I think there at the point is commercialization is starting to make sense.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, as I have, and you see these sort of trends that pop up, whether that's the metaverse or something like this. But this one has like underlying value that everyone can look at and say, oh, I see how that would apply to my various verticals or horizontal opportunities. So it's a little bit more than just a trend or a dot in time. I think there's some real value here. Absolutely.
I completely agree with you.
So can you bring the audience up to speed on your background prior to where you are currently? It was really exciting for me reading about all the things you've done from MIT to the White House. So I wanted you to kind of have the opportunity to share that with the audience and maybe take us on a truncated version of your journey to today.
Yeah. Oh, where do I start? I mean, so I'm an engineer by training. So I am a mechanical engineer, but not a very traditional mechanical engineer. I started with robotics industry, but then I moved into biomedical sensing research, and then also moved into what you call the mesh network. It's a networking of devices. At that time, we didn't call it that way, but now we are calling it IoT, Internet of Things. That's what it's being called. And then I started my own startup. So IoT was an exciting concept. We wanted to apply that technology to a broader range of industries, building automation, factory automation, healthcare, and even going down to defense industry. So I did a startup. It was typical venture-backed startup. I raised a few rounds of funding and sold a company. And then after that, I was looking for what I'm going to do next. And then someone from, I think it was a recruiter hired by the White House, they reached out to me and said, hey, there is this position. It's called the Presidential Innovation Fellow, the new exciting program that brings in private sector skill sets into the government. and work on a future changing or future looking industry. In this case, it was IoT. Okay, so they looked at me and say, "Hey, why don't you join this Whitehouse Innovation, the fellow program, and work on IoT?" So I said, "Wow, that sounded interesting. I never knew I was going to work for the government. Actually, I was on a complete 180-degree side, right? I mean, it was the startups and all the venture capitals of that. Then suddenly, I work for one of the largest, probably bureaucratic organization in the world, which is
Yeah.
federal government. But that was a very exciting opportunity for me to shape the direction of the IoT. We call this cyber physical systems, but in the core, it's really IoT for the United States. So I worked in the capacity for 1 year. I got to meet a lot of exciting folks and very intelligent folks who work on very different fields. And after the 1 year stint as a Whitehouse Innovation Fellow, then I permanently got a job at the Commerce Department to run a smart city program. So now this is an interesting program because if you think about it, IoT is an enabler. You can connect and combine many different things and apply this technology to many different sectors. So if you apply IoT to home, it becomes a smart home. And if you apply IoT to industry, it becomes a industrial IoT. That's what we call factory automation. If you apply IoT to municipals, that becomes a smart city. So that became my thing, and I started working on the smart city initiative. I grew that program to become the probably the largest smart city program in the United States. And it was a global program, and with about 200 cities around the world and about 500 companies working together on the same program. And I ran it for 6 to 7 years. And LG called me, and I joined LG.
Wow. I feel like we need a separate podcast just on that part of your journey.
Sorry, I talked too much. I'm sorry about that. You can edit it out.
No, you didn't talk too much. I want you to talk more about it. I think it's so exciting. But let's focus on LG for today. Maybe we'll do another one down the road. So you're the head of the LG Electronics North American Innovation Center, which leads so many different innovation efforts there. Can you share some specific examples, perhaps, of how LG Nova is driving innovation for the company overall?
Yeah, absolutely. So to answer the question, I need to share the background of why LG Electronics created this center and why they hired me. So LG Electronics is one of the largest manufacturer of appliances and TVs and all these things. So LG is extremely good at manufacturing. That's the core of it. Now, LG is going to do that forever, I think. LG is going to be the number one in the sector and grow the business. But at the same time, LG wants to also look at the future growth areas that may not be the manufacturing area. So, for example, software, platform, and service businesses, which is not the core LG business today, but they may have a huge potential in the future. So LG Electronics was thinking, oh, what do you have to do with it? And then North America seems to be obviously in many cases, the big starting place for innovation. So they decided to set up a innovation center to look for the next big thing that is not in line with what LG's traditional business has been doing. Okay, this is important. So this was set up to find out and build the new businesses that LG is not currently in today. So obviously they were looking for, okay, who's going to lead it? And they thought someone from outside of LG Electronics would be a good fit. So they did a search. Somehow they found me. I don't know how. And they told me that, hey, you seem to have a pretty interesting background in innovation and creating new initiatives, new business cases. Why don't you join us and lead it? Seemed to be something exciting. So I joined it. So now that is the background. So brings to your question. So what LG Electronics is expecting to this North America Innovation Center and how we do innovation. So our mission is very clear. Our mission is to create new businesses or new ventures that LG is not in today. Okay, so this brings that's a very exciting, but it's a very difficult problem. Think about it. What it means is we have to create businesses in a market or markets that LG has no idea, all right? Because that's a new market for LG. What that also means is that LG does not have a skill set, does not have a talent in those kind of new sectors. Third, LG is a huge company, but at the end of the day, economically, or any innovation should make sense economically. What that means is there's a limited amount of capital that can be invested into doing sort of like doing something for the future. So we're talking about sectors like digital healthcare. We are talking about software-based energy management system. We are talking about metaverse. We are talking about job reskilling the industry. So all these things that LG has not looked at, LG doesn't have a lot of idea. So my solution was, okay, we don't have a lot internally, so let's bring them in. There are tons of startups out there. There are tons of talents out there. There are tons of skill sets out there that already have these components that we are missing. We cannot bring everything into our organization. So we have to find a way to work together, partnerships, collaboration. So that is the idea of what I call outside in. So let's bring these talents outside. When I say bring in, some of them we're going to hire, some of them we're going to acquire as our LG resources. But at the same time, we can partner with the startups. So we can invest in those startups, and we can even acquire them. At the same time, we may not even acquire them. We can we can enter into a sort of like a collaboration agreement, for example.
Yeah.
So, but in the end, we want to create a next venture as a new venture for LG's businesses. So we're going to launch new businesses outside of LG Electronics in this new exciting the area. So I said a lot, but that's sort of like the whole 9 yards of what we do.
I love it, and I want to drill into a couple different areas that you mentioned. One is maybe a big picture question, which is why, right? LG, as you said, number one, manufacturing, crushing it. It's not like manufacturing is going away. It's not like people won't need TVs in the future, right? And LG's presence at CES shows, right, the evolution of that. And there's so many different sort of what I call core businesses that LG is succeeding at and growing. Why look at these next new ventures from just a big picture lens? If I'm the CEO of a company in a different industry and I'm like, well, I've got my tried and true core business, why do I even need to think about something outside of that lane that I've proven myself in?
Oh, Fred, that's an excellent question. And that's the key question about why we exist. So you are absolutely right. LG Electronics, $65-70 billion manufacturer, one of the largest in the world of appliances and so on. This business is a great business. It will grow. We're not going to get rid of refrigerators and washers and dryers anytime soon. So we are going to grow. We're going to come with a new innovation for those sectors as well. So LG could have made a decision and say, okay, we're happy with it. We're going to just go with it. As the market grows, we're going to just keep going in the market. But when you become a number one in any industry, in any sector, is this something that you are completely happy about? That's one way to look at it. LG could have done it that way. But LG chose another path, saying that, okay, we are number one and we conquer those markets. But what else? We cannot just sit in here and we cannot just be happy about where we are, because we are always hungry. I mean, so we're always hungry. We want to expand our business. We want to explore the market that we have not done, so that we can become $100 billion business, $300 billion business, maybe $1 trillion business at some point. So that is why they are always looking and exploring. That's where we come in. And we are small. We are a small organization at this point. But potentially, we could become the seed of the next $100 billion business. So that is, somebody may say, oh, yeah, you're just dreaming. Yeah, I may be dreaming right now, but maybe in 10 years, this dream may come true. So that's my job.
I love that. So I have a bit of a tough question for you. And it popped up as you were speaking, which is I have a very good friend who does something similar for an unrelated business. And she said to me, there's never a good time for external innovation. And there's never a bad time. And her point was that when you're crushing it, you're number one, and you're kicking off cash, you're doing all the right things, investors, the board, the CEO might be like, well, just reinvest in the core, right? Why would we ever distract ourselves? This is all winning. And when things are going poorly, we got to reinvest in the core because things are going poorly, right? Like we can't risk other things. How do you think about that when you are, as you said, no matter how big an organization you are, how profitable you are, there's limited capital in that you could allocate that capital in a lot of different ways. How do you justify what may be the next 100 billion, but it's not 100 billion today? So how do you help the organization see that potential and advocate for that investment in what you're doing?
Yeah, Fred, I think that's another key question that goes to the heart of the issues the innovators face always, especially corporate innovators, because you're absolutely right. When there's a profit, then they want to invest the profit into where they can get the biggest bang for the buck. And this kind of things that I'm doing, and it's not going to produce biggest bang for the buck next year or even this year or in a short amount of time. So there has to be a strategic decision the company has to make. And part of my job is to come up with a compelling case to convince the decision makers or board members to provide a certain amount of resources, not huge compared to all the size of LG Electronics, to invest in the future. It's almost like in some sense, some of them may think almost like an insurance policy for them, just in case in the future, who knows, digital health will conquer the world. Then LG doesn't want to be behind. But I think there are a couple more things here in specifically for LG. LG has an experience. They actually had an experience of investing in something very different that industry didn't really need, but became a huge success. The LG, not electronics, but LG is a big family of businesses. We have 64 companies across so many things. And one of the largest, the LG Electronics. Another largest business is the LG battery business. It's called LG, the Energy Solutions, but they manufacture battery that's like number one or number two right now.
Yeah.
That battery business did not just come out of the thin air. LG started investing in battery business for 25 years ago. At the time, nobody really cared much about battery. I mean, yeah, the battery was necessary, but it wasn't like that this was creating like zillion-dollar market. But they thought, okay, just in case, just like we are looking at a digital health, and maybe this is something in the future, it will become a huge business. Fast forward right now, after 20 years, it became one of the largest businesses LG is now carrying out at this point. So LG has this experience. When someone saw that in the 65 years of history,
yeah,
on back of your mind that always, yes, we have always invested in the future. It may not be 90% of our profits, but something so that you can look at the next battery business. Maybe it doesn't need to be battery next time. It can be software. It can be healthcare. So that's one piece of it. Now, I have to add one more thing, which now goes unique skill sets and capabilities of LG Nova. So even with all that, capital is always limited. Resources always limited. You're never going to get enough capital. So we and I fully understand it. That's why we work with outside investors as well. At the end of the day, if what we are trying to do is really meaningful and it really makes sense from business perspective, it doesn't necessarily need to be internal investors. It could be outside investors to put money into there too. And interestingly, this is another interesting point, a lot of the sectors that we are looking at, like healthcare and clean tech, actually these are really hot sectors in terms of from the perspective of investment. So uh, when I say outside in, we are not just talking about skill sets. We're not just talking about startups. We also talk about investors. So the model is LG puts in a certain amount of capital to create LG's new ventures, but we also let outside investors to invest into the ventures that we are creating. And so far, it seems to be working pretty well. I mean, there's no guarantee, of course. That's like nature with any investment, but we are seeing significant traction to co-invest in the businesses that LG Nova is creating. So yes, there is an issue, there is a work to do, but LG has the culture of investing for the future. That's what I saw, at least, and what the history has told us. And also, we work with outside investors so we can share the result.
Yeah, I love that. And it's funny when you mentioned insurance policy. Probably 2 years ago, I was interviewing somebody for the show, and I said the phrase disruption insurance. I said essentially
disruption insurance, okay.
And he was like, I love that. And it's in our sales materials, and it's something I always think about, that there's sort of two ways to view this, is like growth opportunities and or disruption insurance, and they're not mutually exclusive, right? And I think that when you have a company that has seen this play out, you can point to that. And I love the battery example, but it is still challenging. I love what I'll call the community, right? Collaboration of bringing in outside investors, outside thinkers, marrying it with the best of what you have internally, and those sort of commercial opportunities. It surrounds it, right? It sort of de-risks what you're doing and also creates more opportunities for all involved.
Absolutely. But at the same time, LG Electronics has its own big strategy. We always have to sort of align ourselves to that. It may not be 100% aligned, because what we do may not exactly be the same as what our main businesses do, but there always has to be some kind of intersection. So that's something we always pay attention to and make sure our innovation and existing larger business are going hand in hand.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And it's funny when we talk to like CVCs, there's always that friction between, are they a financial standalone or is it strategic? And it's like, well, it's both. And you have to kind of figure out, and in your case, you're supposed to be creating next and new ventures, but it's still, it's got to fit back into the strategy, or it's sort of, they used to call it the skunk works, right? And those are the ones that don't survive because they're not tied to the business in some way.
That's Fred. So this is actually a very interesting point. So CVCs, if you look at them, there is this tension, as we mentioned, between the main business units, and they want CVCs to invest into what they think is going to be valuable. But the issue is CVC's mission, in many cases, many companies, is also bring the future into the picture. So then always there's a tension between, okay, we got to invest in the future, but whoever is funding it is always saying that, well, no, I need to worry about quarterly earnings. I need to worry about profit of this year. So there's always this tension. And interestingly, this is very interesting. So I thought about, okay, what is the best way to convince the stakeholders who actually fund these things, right? And there are so many different ways of doing it, but one way to convince is show the interest of someone else. Someone else is saying it, hey, whatever you are doing is worthy of investment, okay? And not necessarily internal stakeholders, but outside investors say, this looks like this is a good investment. This looks like something that's going to actually make money for those investors. That I bring that in and say, hey, LG, it may or may not be completely aligned with the existing businesses, or some of them may, some of them may not. But see, the other investors, the prominent investors outside are saying this is a good investment that is combined and in combination with the LG's capabilities. So outside view actually helps for me to convince the internal stakeholders as well. So I don't. This is actually very. I've seen so many other corporate incubators. They always try to convince stakeholders from their perspective. Okay, say, oh, this is what you need as a company, all that. But one thing that may be very interesting is, hey, bring in outsiders and not just talks their money. Okay, someone who actually say that, okay, this is exciting. Hey, put your money where your mouth is. That becomes a very strong way to convince or make a compelling case.
I love that. Very, very interesting. It's almost validating immediately what you're doing, showing that people that are sophisticated investors that are looking at deals are finding this interesting and a place to put their dollars as a way to kind of reinforce what you're doing. Brilliant. So let me ask you this. I know we're tight on time. Can you tell the audience about the LG Nova Commercial Accelerator program? What's unique about it? Really anything you want to share about that, because I want to make sure we help get the word out about what you're doing specifically in that case.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, we work with a lot of startups. The way we work is that we open up. We have something called the Grand Challenge program. And it's not like we are picking winners and losers. And that's not what we do. But the program works as a funneling process for all these startups that come to us and say, let's jointly create a business case. It's not just a business case for LG, but it's not just a business case for the startups. But what if startups, their capabilities are combined with LG Nova's capabilities, whether it's a capital, whether it's a skill sets, and can we create some business that can mutually beneficial? So those discussions happen with the startup. So it's open out there. They can go to our website, lgnova.com, and they can send us the proposals. Now, we have a methodical process to evaluate and discuss those proposals and also add more and revise those proposals together. Eventually, we select a handful of startups that work together. And then this is where exciting thing happens. So now actual incubation starts happening. So as I mentioned, we're not necessarily acquiring companies right away. That's not what we do immediately, but we leverage or we work with those startups so that either we license their technology, sometimes we invest into them, and sometimes we buy some components of startup technologies and put them together with our own capabilities. And our own capabilities could be a platform. It could be another software piece. But by combining all that, we come out with a complete solution to address some problems in the market, like chronic care management for healthcare. We just say easily chronic condition management, but that's a huge. Chronic condition means diabetes. It can include high blood pressure. It can include obesity. It could include like high cholesterol. There are so many things that we need to address. And what LG does is LG develops some of the solutions to address them, some of them, but a lot of them we partner with outside the startups, and that's what we do. So once we do that, we launch new businesses, LG's businesses, in collaboration with those startups, and that's where we also bring in outside of capital partners. So LG invests into the new venture as a major stakeholder, but we also open it up to other capital partners to invest. So that's the whole process. So really, for startups, it's an opportunity to create businesses together with LG, and they can actually leverage LG to grow their own business. For investors, it's an opportunity for them to invest into LG-led businesses, and LG is very open for partnership. LG grow our businesses through partnerships. If you look at the history of LG Electronics, so we are very flexible, open to other investors. Eventually, if we are successful, if this new venture become a successful public company, and at that point we're growing like as a separate company with LG, significant stake from LG, of course. become a public company and so on. Investors can exit and win. Startups get their share, revenue share, licensing, whatsoever, and everybody's happy. That's the model. So we have points of input or injection of partnerships from everywhere.
Yeah, I think it's such a smart and interesting model, and I love that it's developed and you've got the outside in on multiple sides there, and also leveraging your internal resources and know-how to make it happen. Well, I know we're out of time, but this has been so enjoyable. I wanted to first thank you for all that you've done throughout your career to spark change, and I think this program is incredibly interesting. We'll definitely point our viewers in the right direction to go check out lgnova.com. And thank you for your time and all your insights today.
Oh, Fred, thanks for having me here. It was a pleasure. And if you want me to be here again and talk about something else, I'm happy to be here.
Watch out. I've got all sorts of questions. I love what you were talking about. So we're going to bring you back.
I'm going to get myself ready for it. Don't worry about it.